Welcome back to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network. My name is Jamira Burley, and I'm with my brilliant host, Brea Baker. And today we're going to recap and break down some of the biggest outcomes from Election Day. I can't even stop smiling, and the blue wave that showed up and showed out.
Yes, same. Jamir and I were so excited that we actually have good things to talk about today. From New York City's mayoral election to gubernatorial races in Virginia and New Jersey to ballot initiatives in California and beyond, a lot was on the line. This year was a big reminder, though, that presidential elections aren't the only way that we shape our nation, and that the greatest form of resistance is consistently showing up, even when things feel messy around us. So today we're going to see where we won, spoiler alert, a lot, where we lost, spoiler alert, not a lot, and what work we have to do ahead of next year's midterm elections. But let's start with some headlines. Okay, so, we're going to be talking about the election all throughout the episode, so wanted to pull some non-election related headlines. And unfortunately, Teen Vogue is being folded into Vogue.com. They eliminated all of the political teams. There are no Black women working at Teen Vogue anymore. There are no trans or queer reporters working at Teen Vogue anymore. And it's really frustrating and devastating because, especially after post 2016, Teen Vogue really emerged as this like gleaming space of putting truth to power and like amplifying marginalized voices. And to not have that, and to have Teen Vogue kind of stuffed under the more conservative, not willing to cross the line header of Vogue, it's such a loss for journalism at a time when we're already losing so much.
No, absolutely. And, I remember engaging with Teen Vogue in 2026, 2020, 2024. And the reasons what you named of all of the amazing content and journalism that has happened over the last few years due to a wide range of women journalists and editors who saw space and the desire to add those voices is the reason why they were folded, right? Is because they knew that the power of Teen Vogue is massive, and the following and the cult following that exists, where young women were finally had a place that was talking about politics and beauty from a perspective that enabled for them to really grasp what was going on and feel empowered to actually do something about the real issues. So I think this is a continuation of us seeing media outlets comply in advance, right? And I hope they understand that we will remember, right? Our memories are not that we won't remember Vogue and Teen Vogue and other, industry leaders in the media kind of folding in this moment where they actually should be doubling down and creating more spaces for more diverse voices. So Vogue, we will remember.
I hope they really reconsider this and walk this back in the coming months. But right now it's looking really bleak.
Yeah, right now they're showing their asses, and hopefully they will reap the benefit of that in the long run when people will leave the publication or stop entertaining it. In other bad news, so I'm hoping we get all the bad news out in the first of the show. In other bad news, I'm sure you all have been watching what many people are saying the war in Sudan, but it's not the war in Sudan. It's a genocide in Sudan. More than 150 people have been killed. More than 14 million people have been displaced, their homes confiscated. There have been images that have been circulating online over the last few days where you can literally see bodies packed on top of each other from satellite images. You can see stains of blood in the ground from where they unalived men, women, children, some as young as 1 year old have been reported as been sexually assaulted and killed. This is the reality, and it's being led by the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, which is backed by the United Arab Emirates. So don't travel to the UAE.
No Dubai.
And boycott the Dubai because what they're doing in Darfur is horrendous, right? 18 months of a siege has resulted in hundreds of thousands of people losing their lives and their land being confiscated. And it's devastating. And these people are also being starved to death, right? Resources are not being able to get into Darfur and the larger populations of Sudan. So keep your eye on Sudan. all of our oppressors are oftentimes interlinked with each other, are supportive of each other, and are practicing the same type of repetitive, repressive, and disenfranchised practices. And we need to all collectively uplift what's happening, not just in Gaza and in the US, but also in Sudan and in the Congo as well.
Yeah, because like you said, it is all interconnected. It is, in Palestine, we're seeing land grabs and this this genocide of Palestinian people to create this, Zionist state. In Sudan, we're seeing these gold grabs, and it's like, okay, Dubai is like associated with richness and wealth, but at the expense of Sudanese people. Same with what we're seeing in Congo. New iPhones are only made possible because of the cobalt that is being taken. So all of this is really done in the name of, it's really complicated and it's political and it's, religious and it's this and it's that. And no, you're trying to get rich and you don't care that you have to kill tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, displace millions of people to do it. And so we have to be vigilant. Maybe we need to do an episode on Sudan, because I do think that there has been a lot more silence around this. And sometimes we don't think that we have a need to speak up, but yeah, we absolutely need to. So I'm really glad that you. Yeah. Well, I'm going to bring it to something that in my eyes is positive, but we started off election day with Dick Cheney dying. For those who are like, oh my gosh, she's like, gloating in this man's death. Yeah. Dick Cheney, former vice president under George Bush, the younger George Bush, was the architect of the war on terror, aka the reason that we fought senseless wars in Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, many other places. Countless lives were lost. Islamophobia being as like visceral and like violent as it is in America is largely due to his role. Even after he stopped being the vice president, he took on roles as CEO of various companies that are creating some of the worst climate change crises that we're experiencing right now. But I think what's most important is his role as vice president. And for all of the talk of, vice presidents don't have a lot of power, Dick Cheney got into that office and made sure that he did have power, and used that power at the expense of Muslim people, Arab people, communities of color across the nation. And he did so gleefully. And his daughter, Liz Cheney, has been defying MAGA Trumps and all of that, but it does not sanitize her father's legacy. And though he came around for her, does not mean that he's someone that I'm going to sit here and pretend to mourn. So I think it was, there were a lot of memes online that, Dick Cheney just couldn't stand to see a Muslim mayor of New York, so he had to bow out right before Mamdani became elected. But ultimately, I do think that it was a very interesting start to election day to see someone so powerful and such a villain.
Yeah, just a very evil person. Right. This is a man who created the war on terror with the sole purpose of demonizing and criminalizing Iraqis, that resulted in what many people may say is 100,000 Iraqis were killed, but people are estimating that to be in the millions, right? When you think about a 2-decade span war on terror that resulted in more than 4,500 American soldiers also losing their lives. And think about the women and children and the boys who were, there have been heinous crimes inflicted upon the Iraqis due to military occupation in Iraq. And I am not a person that normally celebrates death, but today's a good day. Today's a good day. Like, I'm not going to pretend to mourn a man who made it his life mission to demonize Muslims and increase Islamic phobia that resulted in thousands of people being arrested here in the United States, right? Thousands of people being unlawfully stopped and their property sieged. I saw a video on TikTok the other day that talked about a girl was like following her father as he went to go vote for Mamdani yesterday, and talking about how he experienced so much racial profiling in the early 2000s due to the war on terror. And like, what a time to be alive with his ability to now vote for someone who looks like him, who also has been experiencing xenophobia. A prime example that the tide does turn eventually, and we need to stop elevating voices like Dick Cheney and seeing him as a hero when we know at his core he was such an evil man who knew better and chose to not do better.
Yeah. I just think that people who want to be mourned and beloved in death need to do things in life that reflect that. And ultimately the lives that you lead will follow you onto the other side. And I think that's really important to remember, is like, it doesn't go away just because, So
if you want people to celebrate you and to cherish you and to uplift you when you're gone, I need you to do that when you're alive. But I'm not
celebrating.
So hopefully he's kicking rocks in hell. Did I say that out loud?
Well, girl, I hope he's experiencing Guantanamo likes, because that's also part of his legacy too. So it's like, get everything that you gave out on the other side, my friend.
Yeah, don't create hell here on earth and expect to be living in heaven when you pass. No, that's not how it works. So let the chips fall where they may. So in my last really bad news of the day, in a new report details the Trump devastating impact on Black Americans. The Blackout Report, which was produced by a nonprofit research firm called Onyx Impact, have done an amazing job at really culminating the different policies and practices that have happened over the last 9-10 months of the Trump administration, and how that has had devastating implications for African Americans. When you think about everyone from everything from the whitewashing of African American history to the firing of hundreds of thousands of federal workers, many of them Black women, to now what we're seeing, the rollback of DEI programs and how that's impacting the more than 250,000 Black women that have lost their job over the last year. And what is that doing for our communities, right? And the escalation of Black men going into incarceration due to the Trump administration, how he's only trying to make those laws that much harder. And let's not forget how we're seeing universities and colleges rolling back their programs that enabled for more Black and brown folks to be able to enter into higher education, and how that's having devastating implications at some of our highest institutions of education. And so, it's all we like to think that the policies that are coming from the Trump administration, the ones that are making like national news, don't really impact Black folks. And I want people to know that we were always the target. There are ways going to get around to us. And I think this report really lays out how it has identified more than 15,000 impact points defined in the instances of actions that have erased, distorted, or suppressed Black history. And it's going to take us decades to undo the damage.
Elections matter, y'all. I mean, this is an election day episode and we're going to dig all into that. But I think this is proof that this is what is possible. This is the outcome of 10 months of Trump. When we vote people in for 2 and 4 year terms, when we vote people in who get to appoint people for lifetime terms, like all of this will have impacts that are going to be so far reaching, that are going to shape us for not just the next several years, but for some of our families for generations. That the sort of things that you just mentioned, Jamira, is going to set people back in really big ways, that their children are going to still be trying to like dig themselves out of those holes. And so we just have to show up. And it's not to say that elections are the only ways that we show up, but it is a major one. It doesn't mean that you fall in love with these candidates, but you have to say either I love this person's vision and it's worth showing up for, or this person's vision is such a threat to what I'm trying to accomplish that I have to keep them out of office. You don't have to stand these people. They don't have to be your favorite celebrities. You don't got to put their pictures on your walls, but you do have to acknowledge that whether you want them to or not, someone is going to get into this position and change your life, either for the better, for the worse, or they're going to keep it at the status quo and give you some terrain that you can work with and organize within. And when we do and don't show up, we make it that much easier or harder for us to make these moves forward. So I think this report is really heartbreaking, but also important for us to hold up a mirror to ourselves and acknowledge, like, we should never fall asleep at the wheel and think that an election cycle doesn't matter. So when we come back from this break, we're going to talk all about how 2025 matters and will continue to matter, and how it's going to shape what we have coming up in 2026. Again, you're watching The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase, and I'm here with a very important message. We are at a turning point in the Black community where we must have equity in the apps we use that scale to billions of dollars. But this time, we own the infrastructure, we own the culture, and we shape the future. And Fanbase is the future. Fanbase combines the free functionality of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube into an all-in-one platform built for the evolution of social media and monetization. With over 1.4 million users, that's real proof that we are shifting the conversation of tech ownership and equity for creators. So right now, I want you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. This marks a turning point in Black ownership of social media. If we don't take this opportunity to own social media right now, we will always be customers to our own creations. And that can't go on. So once again, go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. We must own the platforms where our voices live, our stories matter, and where our culture drives the world. Thank you.
Dark times, I know that it is harder than ever to keep faith in our democracy. It has been attacked by billionaires and their big spending, by elected officials who care more about self-enrichment than the public trust, and by authoritarian leaders who rule through fear. But above all, our democracy has been attacked from within. For too long, New Yorkers have strained to find a leader who represents us, who puts us first. And we have been betrayed time and again. After so many disappointments, the heart hardens, belief becomes elusive. And when we no longer believe in our democracy, it only becomes easier for people like Donald Trump to convince us of his worth. For billionaires to convince us that they must always lead. As FDR said, democracy has disappeared in several other great nations, not because the people disliked democracy, but because they had grown tired of unemployment and insecurity, of seeing their children hungry while they sat helpless in the face of government confusion and weakness. In desperation, they chose to sacrifice liberty in the hope of getting something to eat. New York, if we have made one thing clear over these past months, it is that we need not choose between the two. We can be free and we can be fed. We can demand what we deserve. And together we have built a movement where everyday New Yorkers recognize themselves in our vision of democracy. Every new voter registered, that is faith renewed. Every voter who traveled through withering heat to the polls, that is faith renewed. Together, New York, we have renewed our democracy. We have given our city permission to believe again. And I pledge to you that we will remake this great city, not in my image, but in the image of every New Yorker who has only known struggle. In our New York, the power belongs to the people.
Welcome back to the other side of change. As you can just see, a lot has happened this week, and we are going to unpack it all. Let's jump right in and begin with one of the most widely watched races, not just here in America, but around the world, Zohran Mamdani and New York City's mayoral election.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Zohran Mamdani brought so much energy, excitement, and eyes to New York this election cycle, where this 33-year-old Muslim Assembly man announced his candidacy. He won the Democratic primary earlier this summer on a campaign platform centered around rent stabilization, housing, free buses, rising the city minimum wage, and universal childcare. His vision for the city was so popular, he defeated former Governor Andrew Cuomo in the primary, a man with so much money and name recognition that one would assume that he would have easily won.
Yeah, but New York came out and said that we are sick of that. I mean, New York has been led by Democratic mayors since Rudy Giuliani and Michael Bloomberg. So over the last decade, it's kind of been feeling inevitable that whoever wins the primary would be a shoo-in for the general election.
Yeah.
And then Andrew Cuomo just could not accept no for an answer. And
sounds
said,
familiar.
Right, exactly, as has been the case across his career. And he threw his hat back in the race as an independent, proving just how far he and the ultra rich were willing to go to keep Mamdani out of office. I mean, literally, there was at one point Mamdani did an interview where he said, you know, they're so afraid of me taxing them. They're spending more money on Andrew Cuomo's campaign than I would tax them. Like, just pay your fair share of taxes and you don't need to be so afraid. But unfortunately for them, and fortunately for us, this only further energized progressives and working class New Yorkers to rally around Mamdani. This week, voters came out and officially named Mamdani as the next mayor of New York City and the city's first Muslim mayor in history.
Yeah, this is major and will signal hopefully to the Democratic Party that what voters want and what we need, and it's not centralism policy, but bold policy that has authentic reach and that want to outreach to a wide range of stakeholders and not just those with the biggest pocketbooks, right?
Yeah.
But with a real sense of urgency for the working class and marginalized communities. Many people stood on the sidelines and this race, from everyone from Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and countless others who are now on notice that they're pandering to white elites were never going to serve us as a community and damn sure what's going to serve the party. It's so interesting because I used to live in New York, and I and you, like many others who used to live in New York, but also those who have never lived in New York from around the world, were very jealous to not be able to vote in this election. Yeah. And speaking of which is why, because what's happening in New York is oftentimes a reflection of what other voters want around the country, right? We want a leader who speaks for us with similar backgrounds and who cares about the issues that we do and is willing to go to bat for it, right? Like, he didn't sway his beliefs in order to gain new voters. He pulled those voters into him to understand why these issues were important. Speaking of what voters want, Virginia governor's race has been a practice on whether America would reject Trumpism or double down on right-wing craziness. And I think we saw the light.
Yes, praise the Lord. Yes, especially because voters in Virginia came out for Trump in all three of his presidential runs. But many Virginia residents are, number one, affected by federal layoffs. Number two, are affected by the ongoing governmental shutdown. Again, this is right outside of DC. And Virginia is one of the last southern states to have a semblance of protections, even though it has gone red in recent years, specifically protections around abortion access. So this race was hot. Major point of contention between the two candidates, and identity was coming into play in a big way. So number one, both candidates are women, and either way, whoever won was going to become Virginia's first woman governor. But we had a Republican who was a Black woman who has linked herself deeply to the Trump administration and the racist governor that she serves under currently as the lieutenant. So she hopes that all of that would be enough to keep power. She was playing into identity politics crazy. She'd come at Obama like, Obama wanted y'all to vote for a Black woman in 2024, but now he has nothing to say about me. Yeah, no. Number one, Obama never said vote for Kamala because she's a Black woman. And so he's not going to get up there and tell people to vote for your crazy ass just because you're Black. Like, are you kidding me? She'd get up there and be like talking about discriminating against LGBTQ people and being like, that's totally fine. Like, this woman was nuts. And so she vowed to roll back abortion access, regularly made derogatory comments about queer people, hoped her Blackness would be this shield from progressive pushback. Meanwhile, on the Democratic side, you had Abigail Spanberger, a white woman, who spoke openly about her vision, not only for the state of Virginia, but for what it would signal to the rest of the country about being able to flip red seats blue. And I think that was really.
It's a prime example that not all skin folk are kin folks. And in the end, Democratic Abigail Spanberger secured the win and became Virginia's first woman governor. Virginia won a big all around because they also elected their first South Asian lieutenant governor in the state's history and passed new congressional maps to counter gerrymandering in red states like Texas and North Carolina. So big win for Virginia, where my dad's family is from. California also showed up where I'm at and showed up for the conversation of who builds or chips away at power. If you remember this year, Texas official had a nasty battle over redistricting where new gerrymandering maps delivered 5 more House of Representatives seats to the red state. Governor Gavin Newsom of California responded with his own newly drawn maps, voters to weigh in via the Proposition 50, which I voted for last night. If successful, which it was, the proposition would result in 5 more states to counteract the Republican power grab. So what a good day in California.
Yes, y'all did what needed to be done. Thankfully.
You're welcome.
And gave us a fighting chance because look, I mean, again, 2026 is going to be crazy. Texas is trying to get more seats. North Carolina is trying to get more seats. I think Kansas too. And so to see California and other states respond the way that they did, I think is really important to show like, y'all want to play hardball, we can do that too. And we can win big on it. So shout out to that. And like Virginia, you know, New Jersey also had a highly contested gubernatorial race. Now, personally, I was not a big fan of the Democrat who won the primary, Ras Baraka, who, if you are in this Black spaces, that Baraka last name tells you a lot because that family has been in revolutionary politics and social justice for decades. And so I was really excited to see Ras Baraka hopefully make it through. He did not make it past the primary. But like I said earlier, we're not here to stand politicians. So I don't have to be head over heels in love with Mickey Sherrill. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. But I do have to acknowledge that her opponent would have been detrimental for the state. Republican nominee Jack Ciattarelli needed to be stopped at all costs. And that's what New Jersey residents were coming out for.
Absolutely. That's right. Ciattarelli was endorsed by Trump. That should tell us everything we needed to know on his 3rd time trying to become the governor while riding the MAGA coattails.
Another one who just wanted to know for an answer. Third time?
Like, I understand passion, but if the people that you want to represent don't want to vote you in for two times in a row, it might be time to like hang the hat up. On election day, the stakes became extremely clear when several New Jersey counties were targeted with bomb threats at polling stations, or polling sites, I should say. The majority of those areas had Democratic majorities. Despite the intimidation, MAGA meddling, Mikey won her race for governor in a landslide. 2 major victories for Democrats in the state, and you know, what a time! Yeah. I feel like I'm going to be smiling all day, especially as I'm walking past people who I know, you know, ain't on the right side.
No, I mean, literally going into this, knowing that we were going to do this episode and watching election results and just being like, okay, you know, I hope we win the biggest races, and we might have to, you know, accept some L's in some other places. But I'm just like, I mean, we ran it down. I mean, Democrats did what needed to be done in all over the country because we're just going through some of the biggest races that we had our eyes on. But voters came out for mayors, governors, city council members, judges, attorney generals, school board members, and so much more. I mean, I was personally excited as a Georgia resident to see my fellow Georgians come out against utility monopolies. We flipped something called the Public Service Commission, which is, again, one of those down ballot races that you're like, what does this actually mean? But we realized that in this election cycle, it meant we get to hold the people in charge of our electricity bills accountable. These seats have been held by Republicans since 2007, and we just flipped it for the first time blue. And so that was so major. Also love to see that Albany, New York elected their first Black woman mayor, as did Detroit. I mean, there were so many good races going on. I don't know, Jamira, what other races were you excited to see?
I mean, you know, I'm a Philadelphia girl, Philly girl through and through. And I have to shout out the Pennsylvania voters who made sure to secure the Supreme Court and keep it the Democratic majority. I also am glad to see that J.D. Vance lost the voters and lost the election for his bid for mayor in Cincinnati, because we don't need anyone else from that family to shape the political landscape for this country. And ultimately, Democrats won big across the board. And that energy hopefully will keep us inspired, keep us motivated, and realize that we don't have to throw the hat in, as Charlemagne the God said he should take all several seats because he's not a political analyst, but that we are showing up and showing out, and let's use this energy to encourage more people like who have been elected to want to run for office, want to represent the people, and encourage those who don't want to do the work to step aside, because we have real issues and we need real solutions right now.
Real solutions. We have to shout
and
out
real
our
leaders.
Yes, real leaders. No, but I love what you said as far as like we have to be the change we want to see. We got to be the ones to say something's got to give. These people in office are not doing enough, and I can be the one to do more. And I have ideas for my community. Just before we started filming the episode, we were looking at our girl Ziana Bryant, who was elected as a school board member last night. And so I think these are all big moments that show you don't have to be running for president, for Senate, for governor to make a difference in your community. You can look out at your community and say, I don't like the way they're banning books. I don't like the way that they're designing this curriculum. I don't like the way our electricity bills have been high. And you can be the change that you want to see. And I just love to see younger, Black, brown, disabled, queer, like people from these backgrounds who are deciding that it's going to be us. Yeah. We actually also didn't mention earlier, but Zohran Mamdani is also New York City's first millennial mayor. So, seeing young people show up in this way, is really special and magical, and hopefully we get a lot more of it. So that brings me to our guest. When we come back from this break, we're going to bring up someone who knows a lot about electoral politics, who has worked to build political power in New York and across the country. We'll be right back after this short break to hear from him on what all of this means for us. You're watching The Other Side of Change, only on Black Star Network.
Violent white supremacy is, quote, the most persistent and lethal threat in the homeland.
The greatest terrorist threat to the homeland is the homegrown violence stream, including hate crime committed on behalf of some kind of white supremacist ideology.
They are coming after everything in Black America. MAGA and Donald Trump are specifically targeting Black America. They are going after the money. Attack Black Lives Matter. Attack critical race theory, attack woke, DEI. MAGA wants to defund Black America. This is a perfect example of their desire to completely degrade and de-emphasize Black people.
Welcome back to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network. To help us understand this moment from a bird's eye view, we have Stanley Fritz. Stanley is a long-term advocate, campaign leader, and progressive politico. Stanley is also the writer who has a Substack newsletter called Let's Not Be Trash. Love that title. So Stanley, Let's Not Be Trash, which digs into the patriarchy, love, hip hop, social justice, politics, and so much more from the perspective of a multi-dimensional Black man. So welcome to the show, Stanley. We're super excited to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Really two cool, powerful women. Happy to talk about politics.
I appreciate you. Stanley is like family to me. I'm so glad that you're on the show, but also I've learned so much from you. So I just feel like you're going to give people what they need. We're going to start off easy with a question that the answer feels obvious, but when you think through the overall outcome from last night, who won Election Day? Democrats or Republicans? Or within Democrats, which subgroups won?
I mean, so Democrats definitely won, but I think people who are either have always been against Trump or people who are starting to be against Trump, they won. People wanting something different than what the beginning have won. And it's really important to say that like people who want elected officials who stand for something are starting to win too. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, and it's not all Democrats who fit into that bucket, even though it benefited the Democratic line. But I'm glad that you specified that people who are against Trump, because Cuomo was happy to take that Trump visibility and whatnot, and did not win.
Yeah, I feel like so much of the elections that happened yesterday was in spite of the Democratic Party, and despite their lack of support and fundraising and ability to be able to organize, right? Because the last few months, we've seen so many people relabel themselves as independent or leave the party altogether. So I think hopefully it's a wake up call for the establishment politics to realize, people are not just only showing up, but they're organizing themselves. I'm curious, what race were you most locked into for the last couple of months? And do you think will have the most exciting implications for the election of 2020, 2026 and 2028?
Well, I was locked in on my girl Mickey in New Jersey.
Yes.
I was definitely New York City. That was it for me. Zoran Mondani. I remember last year this time when he first came into the race, was polling at less than 2% at that point.
Yep.
But I was talking to a friend and I was like, I don't know if he can win, but if you can mainstream the issue of universal childcare, free supermarkets, I'm like affordable supermarkets, and also fast and free buses, that's a big win. And now a year later, he is the next mayor for New York City. But the implications of what this means in a city where you have more people than they have in some states that has chosen someone who's a democratic socialist who is standing up for issues where we say the government can work and it should work for regular people, and that we shouldn't just be giving it all to the ultra wealthy. This has big implications for how folks run. And to go back to Governor Cheryl now in New Jersey, at the end of her campaign, she was talking about doing a public utility freeze, about using every single lever in her power to make New Jersey more affordable. She had to do that because, as Democrats have learned and will continue to learn, you can't just keep running on, Trump is bad. Nobody cares about him now. So I'm really excited. And that New York City race, establishment Democrats don't want to acknowledge it because a lot of them don't want to change what's been working for them or not working for the rest of us. He shook the table too much. If we can govern even 30% to what he campaigned on, we got a lot of good things coming.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And to your point, I do think that I love that you mentioned that even if he had not won, it was just being able to mainstream some of those policies that would have been exciting, because we really need them. And we had talked on our previous episode about how New Mexico just got universal child care and what it means to bring that to other blue states and then to make that a nationwide policy. But for him to both make those policies sexy and to win and be in a position to actually implement them is going to be major. What should Democrats and progressives be taking away from what worked and didn't work in this cycle, especially considering in the case of Zoran Mondani, a lot of Democrats waited to the very last moment to endorse him. And even after endorsing him, we're saying, well, he's not going to be the face of the party. And I appreciated what AOC said yesterday after it was confirmed that he won, which is that there is no one face of the party because there is no one face of this country. But what do you feel like should be the takeaway as far as, hey, clearly there are some lessons that we need to channel for next year's midterms?
Well, if you want to win races in midterm elections, then run against Trump, and people who are tired of his policies will vote for you. If you want to stay in power and have people support you, run on issues that people care about and solve problems. The biggest lesson we should learn from this is that the current Democratic establishment needs to go. Rep. Schumer, Rep. Jeffries, Senator Schumer, they're not actually interested in moving policies that impact people's lives. They've shown that in the policies they supported. They showed that when Biden won, Democrats were the majority in the Senate and the House, and then didn't raise the minimum wage because of the parliamentarian, and it was not willing to push senators who were squeamish on it to vote on the bill. Why? Because they were afraid of losing Trump voters. Those same Trump voters who still didn't vote for them when Trump ran again anyway. So the biggest takeaway is it's time for a shift. Nikki Sherrill won, Abigail Spanberger won in Virginia and did pretty well. But the fact of the matter is they're winning because so many people are upset with Trump and the government shutdown. Can they win again when it's time for the election? I don't think so if they're not willing to actually enact policy that's going to impact people's lives. So this is going to be a very interesting next couple of years.
And I think that's what people need to realize, right, and reckon with. Like, people are desiring something vastly different than the current establishment that we have in place. And until the establishment is willing to shift, right, versus shifting to your base, right, which is what all internal polls have told Kamala, has told elected officials for the last few years, is to double down on your base. Instead, they've been trying to move closer to the middle, which is being further pulled to the right. It's interesting you mentioned that even if Mondani was to be successful in getting 30% of what he wanted, he would be have so much political power and capital as a result of that. And I think one of the things that have been most frustrating to me is that people oftentimes don't realize that, when Barack Obama ran for president the first time, he was also considered someone who didn't have a lot of experience, right? He was also someone who proposed very similar, if not more radical, progressive policies when he first was running for office. And with that being said, we saw Barack Obama walk back much of the urgency for many of those issues, or totally not pursue them once he got into office. What can we as voters, right, not just in New York, but around the country, how do we help to ensure that the people we elect into office are successful, but also that we're holding them accountable at the same time to ensure that they continue to listen to the voters and build the momentum versus just protecting their individual seat in office?
I mean, I got lots of thoughts about Barack Obama, President Obama, right?
Spill the tea.
I'll say a couple things about him. The first thing is, I think that he is a pragmatist, and of course, my girl will start talking when I'm talking about Obama. But I think that Obama is a pragmatist, and that can be very helpful, but it can be hurtful when you're talking about policy. Because he looked at the field, he looked at the way that Republicans, particularly Tea Party Republicans, and people were protesting him and pushing back on his policies, and he said, "I can't get this done, so I'm going to go for what I can get done." So he went from going from single-payer healthcare to saying, okay, we're going to go for the Affordable Care Act, and we're going to have a single-payer option. But his pragmatism made him go, okay, we're going to not do single-payer, we're going to do Affordable Care Act with the option to do single-payer. And the Republicans organized their base, and they were all over the place saying, you're putting death panels for our grandparents. So they got rid of single-payer. And then it was just Affordable Care Act. But he was responding to what he saw on the ground. And the simplest thing to say is, if we want these things to happen, we've got to stay persistent in saying, we want these things to happen. For example, when you get elected into office, most people know if you run and you win with a woman amount of voters, you usually run on a mandate. Generally, you can get 1 to 2 of the big ticket things done that you want. Really one. For Obama, it was the Affordable Care Act. He did a bunch of other things, but that was like the really big piece of legislation that he's known for. So Zoran will probably get one big shot. I think the one big shot he'll get is universal child care, because there's already an infrastructure here in New York State because of the work that State Senator Jamira Burley did, and like organizations like Alliance for Quality Education and Make the Road New York did, right? So now what we have to do is raise taxes on the rich to make it so that it covers everybody, no matter how much money you make. And Governor Hochul, who's up for re-election, has to show that she has something to offer, and is already saying that she thinks we can get it done. So if all he gets done is universal child care, that's going to transform the economic reality in New York. Because there's a couple of things that people don't realize. Most of these child care companies, these small places, are run by Black people, Black women. That's going to help boost Black employment. It's also going to help more people get into the workforce. We also know that children who have access to child care are more likely to graduate from high school and go to college. We know that when you have a family with children and they have access to childcare, they're more likely to be above the poverty line. This opens up so many new opportunities, and then collateral consequences with new businesses and industries. It can really shift the way that the New York economy works in a big way, especially if we raise the floor for how much we pay childcare workers. Because right now in New York City, we have U3K, but those U3K workers are not even getting paid as much as teachers. They're getting paid about $30,000 a year. That's not going to cut it. So say he gets that done, it's a wrap. And the supermarkets, we can do that. The city has properties everywhere. We can offer those supermarkets, like offer spaces in supermarkets at low and reduced rents. And if you do that, they can charge less food. In New York City, we have U3K, right? So essentially, once your child is 3 years old, you can put them in a pre-K program. First off, it doesn't cover the whole city, right? And it's not in places where you have a high density of families. Why? Because the city won't fund it enough. And especially under Mayor Adams, he's consistently cut funding for it, so it's even harder to get. 2, the people who are working in these places are making usually minimum wage or barely that, so they're making $30,000 a year. So you're not getting the best talent. And the people who are doing it probably had to work 2-3 jobs just to survive in New York City, where the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment is about $2,000 a month now. So we have a real opportunity to transform the lifestyle for New Yorkers. And if New York does it, it's going to force New Jersey and Connecticut to do it because they want to compete. Because people will move here just because they know they have that luxury.
And hopefully Philadelphia and Pennsylvania take note, right? Like if New York is successful, how do we duplicate those same kind of results?
Yeah. Swing state. We need to bring that swing state blue and make it. I think a lot of states can take note too, though, this reality that it's, you know, for all of the talk of, oh, it's democratic socialist, like ultimately this is someone who's coming in trying to make it easier for you to raise your families, to work and live and play. And in the richest country in the world, you shouldn't have to work 3 jobs to do that. You shouldn't have to, you know, like, I think that is the core message that he came through with so beautifully that I hope can spread like wildfire throughout the rest of the country, is that a lot of these red states need these policies the most, need more affordable food, affordable childcare, better transportation systems. You know, me living in Georgia, I'm like, to have seen the way that we showed out for a title that in a race that people had never really paid attention to and heard of, Public Service Commission. But what motivated them was, this summer, my electricity bills were the highest they've ever been. You tell me who's trying to change that and I'll show up for them. Democrats had not been in that position since 2007. And we showed up for it because we were motivated by something that was affecting people's pockets directly. And I think that's what we need to stick with. It's like, we don't need to use the jargon and we don't need to use this, like, the talking point is clear. People need their cost of living to be reasonable, to be affordable, to make sense. And we're kind of seeing Republicans kind of latch onto that. Marjorie Taylor Greene is talking like AOC lately, and it's like, I'm sorry, what? She's like, where is the? But I don't think it's that she's actually becoming progressive. I think she's learning what resonates with voters, and she's flipping it and trying to make it sound like America first, like something that she would always say. But I think we're going to see Republicans try to lean into that populist language soon too, and Democrats cannot get left behind trying to be centrist, trying to be moderates. So
yeah, the writing's on the wall.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? They've been doing this. Democrats are the ones who lead the party. Steve Bannon, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about economic revolution, but just for white people. But they're saying that we need to make sure, like when they talk about that family first policies, they're talking about giving families money so they can support and survive, but they only want white families. Democrats are way behind. And none of this stuff is socialism. One of the things that Zoran has been talking about is a public safety agency to deal with the mental health crisis that we have in New York City, right? That's not socialism. That's actually like research-backed approach to solving the mental health and homeless crisis that is effective. Look at what's happening in Baltimore right now, where crime has gone down significantly, or in Camden, New Jersey, where they had the least amount of shootings over the summer in over 30 years. Why? They invested in summer youth. They created diversion programs and support programs for people dealing with mental health. They created activities for teenagers and young adults to be engaged in. They got rid of the entire police force, made them reapply under new conditions, and then engage with the community. You know, places like Alabama and Louisiana, where they have some of the highest incarceration rates in the country, also have skyrocketing violent crime. Alabama has over 200,000 people in their jails and prisons, and they still are the poorest state in the entire United States. And they still have some of the highest murder rates in the entire United States. Policing and over-policing and incarceration doesn't work. But because Democrats, particularly moderates, have been too afraid to actually say, well, this is what works, and stand by it, they consistently lose, or they take away the narrative of Trump and Republicans. And that's why, to kind of go back to like Abigail Spanberger and Mickey Sherrill, who like they won decisively, and they won with 91% of the black vote in both of their states, so they better deliver the black votes, right? If they want to stay in power, they need to support policies that will change things. You cannot, when people are afraid in their communities, you cannot blame Trump. You have to say we have a mental health crisis, we have a homelessness crisis, this is how we do it. Democrats will say that people on the left won and people on the center won. And then they'll also say that what Zoran did was send a good message, right? And it wasn't that he had a quote unquote good message, because anybody can say the rent is too damn high and that we need childcare. But he said that, and then he came with solutions. He was like, this is how we can solve those problems. And not like, oh, we're going to give a $5 subsidy. No, we are going to take care of this because as our government, we can do that. And then when they tried to say he was soft on crime and they tried to scare everybody and say New York was a hellhole, instead of doubling down and using the DNC talking points of, oh, we're going to be tough on crime, we're going to hire more cops, he said, we use cops for too many things. We want to be serious about safety. We need things that address safety. What makes communities less safe is housing instability, low employment, and lack of opportunities. Wherever you see struggle, you will see high levels of crime because people have decided the system is not working for them and they are desperate and they have to take things into their own hands. So Zoran said, we're going to do childcare. We're going to hire more teachers. We're going to create a public safety department that's going to deal with that. And it's not going to be police because too many times police come and take a situation that could have been handled easily and they escalate it. And police have too many things on their plate and they're leaving at record numbers because they're burned out. So here's how we help them and help our communities. Real solutions. We got an opportunity. And while that's happening, all these issues have usually been pushed back on because, to tell the truth, it helps Black people. And that's how people see it. But the thing is, issues that make the lives of Black people better make everyone's lives better. Because Black people, as the ones who have built this country, who have experienced this country through every iteration and every context, understand what the real problems are, which is why we are directly connected to the real solutions. We are more Americans than anybody else here. And white supremacy tells you that if your white auntie gets food stamps in Kentucky, then some Black guy in Alabama is going to get 10 food stamps. And we got to get away from that thinking, because if this country is going to get through whatever Trump's trying to put us through, this is the only way it's going to happen.
Facts.
I appreciate you for saying that. What a time to be alive. So where can folks find out more information about you and stay connected to your work?
Thank you. So I have a subset you guys mentioned, let's not be trash. You know, people say men are trash. That ain't been wrong, but we don't have to be. So we write about politics, patriarchy, social and culture, and we try to do it in a way that's like not preachy, because I feel like a lot of the guys who are in this space, they're like, here's why you're garbage, and here's why I'm better than you. And it's just like, nah, I'm going to tell some stories, we're going to have conversations, and if I'm pushing my brothers on an issue, I'm going to put myself first, so you can see that, you know, like, I did that, so hopefully you won't have to go through that. So for example, I got a post called, spoiler alert, your pipe game is probably trash. to talk about the way that men are selfish in sex. They don't think about their partners at all. We've all learned through pornography, and you think you kill it, and really she's just waiting for you to be done with. And like sex is much more generative and pleasurable for everyone. So I'm not just going in there like dragging men. I'm talking about a time where I laid down the most wackest, corniest level of not even pipe, just peen you can ever do. And what I learned from it. So hopefully, like not pipe, penis, you know, like just we had intercourse. So like hopefully my failures, like don't be like that. Because I was over here listening to Lessons in Steel, thinking that Roxy Reynolds was really enjoying those things. Don't Google those people by the way. So hopefully.
You already know people are going to Google. Just make sure you turn on your what is it called? Your privacy settings. Don't Google them at work though. Not that I know, or anything like that. Thank you so much for joining us.
We love and appreciate you, Stanley. Keep doing what you're doing. We are grateful, and everybody got to visit let's not the letter B trash.com.
Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. See y'all.
Bye.
So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back on the other side of change, only on the Black Star Network.
They said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
Welcome back to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network. This election day was a major showing of what Americans want and are motivated by, so that I hope Democratic leadership is really listening and paying attention. People are voting for bold visions, innovative ideas, and fresh faces for this party.
And it's clear that all of that is a winning strategy. So with the midterms around the corner, we need more of all of it. And we need Democratic leadership to lock in with those bold visions, with those innovative ideas, and with those fresh faces. Stay connected to Working Families Party, Justice Democrats, Run for Something, and other groups who are committed to electoral change. Listen to different pundits. Continue to listen to us over here at The Other Side of Change, to lock in with Stanley Fritz over at Let's Not Be Trash. And just remember that we can do this. We are the ones that we've been waiting for.
Yep. So you've been watching The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network. Until next time, keep resisting, keep dreaming, and keep pushing.